All right, so we've had our little teeny tiny discussion of physics and our little teeny tiny discussion of chemistry, and now we're to cell biology, and we're going to have another little teeny tiny discussion of cells. And so we're trying to get just a framework to use to understand the science of environmental biology. So we said, in terms of chemistry, I'm a collection of carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids. Those are the four biological macromolecules. But they're not just randomly blended together. They're in various locations in cells. Cells are the building blocks of life. And so what we basically have is we have what we call a membrane, a cell membrane on the outside of a cell. And then on the inside, we have a location where we have some genetic information. And that genetic information, it's a code. It's a code for building a protein. And so within, we have proteins and other substances. And so this is the way all cells are organized, is with this. And remember I said lipids don't dissolve in water. And yet on the inside of the cell, we have a whole lot of water. Well, how do we keep it in? We have a lipid on the outside, something we call a phospholipid. It's a phospholipid bilayer that forms the little bag that's holding the water and all that other stuff on the inside of the cell. Now, there's all different kinds of things inside of the cell, including cellular organelles that are responsible for photosynthesis. Now, we had said the ultimate source of energy in the universe, in the biosphere, is that ball of light up in the sky, the sun. And so what happens is we have cellular organelles, little like organs in the cells of plants, not in you and me, but in the cells of plants that are able to use that energy, that light, to take carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and to build those organic molecules. What was I just saying? We are made of carbon, right? And then we got some water in there, yeah? So if you're thinking of a plant, oh yeah, you got to water your plants. Put them in the sun, keep them watered, give them some fertilizer. Now, think about those biological macromolecules. What did we say? We'd said carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen. Remember I was talking about that fertilizer and I said nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Yeah? Those are the three things. So you got your fertilizer. We had said for a protein, you've got to have nitrogen. And then we had said, when we talked about nucleic acids, you have nitrogen in there also, plus phosphorus. Fertilizer. That's why we have fertilizer. Is because you have to have these along with the CO2 from the atmosphere and the water from underground. You've got it. That is all you need. That's all the stuff you need for life, or most of it anyway. So we had said when we talked about systems, remember last time we talked about systems and we had said basically everything is what we call an open system. Now, what did we say a system was? A system is, we had said we got stuff circulating around all of these elements, the carbons and so forth. And so we had said, what does the carbon do? It's in you and me. It's in the food I eat. And then when I use that food as energy, I exhale CO2. And now, all of a sudden, I'm talking about plants, And I said, plants can use sunlight to pull that carbon out of the air and to build sugars and other parts for the plant. And so we have this weird cycle going on. And so we have matter cycles in the biosphere, whereas energy flows through and out, because we had said the energy comes in, and like if I'm really working hard, on the treadmill or pumping iron or running a marathon, yeah, right. But anyway, what happens if you're white-skinned like me? Your face gets beet red, right? And gets where somebody put their hand near you, you say, wow, it's hot. So what's going on? Waste heat energy. You know where that goes? Out there, out into outer space. So the energy flows through the biosphere. Matter cycles, energy enters and leaves. Okay. What is energy? That's an interesting question. To me, anyway. What is energy? I'd said, what was I doing? So I'd said, well, I'm running a marathon. Yeah. Or I put the gasoline in my car and the energy does what? Propels me down the road. Energy, and you say, well, how do I define that? The ability to do work. That's what we call. Energy is the ability to do work. And guess what? It can take a lot of different forms. So we have energy in motion. So when I'm using the energy, we can call it kinetic energy. So as my car is driving down the road using those organic molecules in gasoline, it's all from the sun. When it's doing that, we're using the energy and we call it kinetic energy. Now, while my car is sitting out there in the garage, it has energy still. And we had said, what is energy? The ability to do work. Sometimes it's doing work, and sometimes it's hanging out waiting to do work. That would be potential energy. So energy can either be stored energy, as in potential energy, or kinetic energy when it's being used. And as I'm using that gasoline, or as I am using that candy bar to run long distances, what is happening? In my body, I am tearing those biomolecules apart. And what do? I take those giant carbon-containing molecules and I break them down into carbon dioxide and water. So I exhale CO2 and excess water. Occasionally I go to the restroom, right? And I release it that way. Or maybe I sweat some of it out. But, there's a whole lot of ways you lose water. But my point is that the biomolecules have potential energy, and then that gets broken down into these building blocks that have very little energy anymore. They're in a different form. But they could be used to build high energy molecules again. And that's the cyclic nature of energy. And so energy can be electrical energy, it can be chemical energy, there's all these different forms. The least useful form of energy is that heat energy. We had said that all matter, there's the first law of thermodynamics, and we had said that all matter, matter is neither created nor destroyed, it just changes form. So we had talked about the cyclic nature of carbon, and so it's, being put into big molecules and then broken down into small molecules, which could then later on be used again to build the big molecules. So we have that law of conservation of energy is what they call it, the first law of energy. We then have this second law of energy, which is it basically says that energy transfers are inefficient. And so if we think of making our car drive down the road, I used to have a Jeep, a Jeep Wrangler, and I loved it, but I live in Pittsburgh and I work in Cranberry and up in Butler. And it didn't get good gas mileage. And so the efficiency was very poor, right? So I'd put a whole lot of gas in it, and 3 days later I'd be putting a whole lot of gas in it. Now, I have a smaller car now. Anyway, our other cars have more efficiency. But in all cases, we lose energy with every transfer. Now, how do I know? Because if I put my hand on the muffler, I'll lose my fingerprints because of the heat, right? So anytime you have an energy transfer, and if it were super efficient, the muffler would be cold and we would drive 1,000 miles on a gallon of gas. Instead, I go 30, and we lose a lot of heat. So that loss of effective energy with every transfer is something we call entropy. And it is a hallmark of the second law of thermodynamics, which says that with every energy transfer, there is an inefficiency, there is a loss of energy. And they go on to, physicists, they go on to describe this entropy as a movement towards disorder. Whatever. I find it a little bit hard to relate to that one, but anyway. All right, so the physics of energy, and we're done talking about that. We're going to come back, and we'll bring it up again here in a couple of slides, but we're through with the physics part of it. We're going to talk about water, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the sort of the details of photosynthesis, this business of plants catching that energy. Okay, talk to you later.